Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another one of our weekly Toilet-bound Hanako discussion videos, and today we're here to talk all about episode 4, the Misaki Stairs Part 2. But before we get into the video proper, I do, as always, want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Matthew3645, at VDerogu, at FireOtaku845, at Sirius9752, at Deep Not That Deep, and at Morgan Boyer Poet. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, everybody, and if you too would like to get your name shouted out in next week's Hanako video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Okay, so before we get into the actual episode itself, since these videos aren't really episodic reviews, and more just my opinion on the show week to week, I kind of wanted to address something about the show that's not so much been bugging me, but just something I want to point out. Manga fans, I am very well aware that you guys must be very excited that your show, or your manga series, has finally gotten an anime adaptation. And you might be slightly annoyed with me making the occasional slip up about the manga because I don't know where the story is going, so maybe I say one thing only to find out another thing later on. And I recognize that might be annoying, but please, for the love of all that is good and sacred, please stop commenting cries in manga or laughs in manga. Again, I respect that you guys are really excited, and I totally respect that you love the manga, and I'm sure it's fantastic, but I am an anime only. I will make mistakes here and there. You can point them out, but maybe double check in the comments if somebody has maybe already commented that, stuff like that. Or don't. It doesn't really matter. But I just wanted to address that. Yes, I see your comments. I read them all, but let's stop commenting the same thing. Getting into the episode itself, we have two big things that happen. Kind of, sort of three, but mainly two big ones. We have the confrontation with quote-unquote Misaki, and then we have Nene's search for the Yashiro, and then we have some stuff that happens at the end that we do have to address, but let's go ahead and start with the first confrontation with, again, Misaki, who we later learn to be Yako. This atmosphere in this first meeting between everybody is perfect. It perfectly matches Yako's personality, the fact that it's this sort of really beautiful vista, this like outer space, sort of like calm, serene nature to this area, but there's still that sense of foreboding to it. There's something not right, and something that sort of like makes you unnerved, and that's the sort of vibe that I got from Yako as a character. Her design is super pretty. She's a really like pretty character design, but you can feel something's not quite right, like whether it's her eyes, whether it's just that sort of presence she has to her, something about her isn't right. Like, you know something's bad and that you don't want to be around her. And that's the same vibe that you get from the setting itself. Like, it's really pretty to look at, and I would love to visit for like all of 5 seconds, because after that, I would know something's up and I would want to leave immediately. So I thought that the matching to her was perfect, since it's almost sort of like it invaded, in the sense that this is sort of like their area, like this is her domain, so of course it would sort of match her personality, her id, if you will. So it is a little like they're diving in, you know. The only person missing is Sakaido now. But yeah, it has that same sort of vibe, and I think that they perfectly captured Yako's personality in that scene, at least from what I know about her. And then we get the big moment, which was a total shock, and that is them realizing that it's quote-unquote too late to save Aoi, and that was a genuinely creepy scene. It was unnerving to see like the bodies of all like these other kids, like a whole mountain of them, and they're like dolls now. Like, they're the dolls that they kept seeing on the way up to the highest floor, those like dolls with the 2 written on the paper on the face. And it was upsetting. It was sad to see, like, Aoi completely just gone, just turned into this doll, and they, for a second, I genuinely believed that they just weren't going to get her back, because they had already sort of wiped the world's mind of Aoi. So I kind of figured, like, yeah, they could kill this character. She's not massively important. She could kind of get axed out of the series, and I mean, not much would change, at least as far as I know. Again, manga readers, I'm sure there's something that I don't know, but bear with me, anime only. But it was a genuinely shocking moment, and I thought that they absolutely nailed it. I totally believed that this character was gone, that whole scene was so creepy. Like, I was just like, ugh, like the bodies and the big scissors, and it was fantastic. It was just perfectly done, in my opinion. And then we get the big fighting to keep going at the border of life and death moment, and it was great. This moment where Hanako's like, are you really gonna give up here? Because technically, nobody dies here. Nobody lives either, but nobody's dead, so we can still save these people, but you gotta work with me. And I thought that was really, really swell. I really, like, the other thing too is that we get the sort of, like, Ko is fighting against Yako, and like his arm gets turned into a doll for a second. It was really, really interesting. I wish we had like some crazy like top tier animator to come in and work on this scene. I would love to have actually seen the fight between Ko, Hanako, and Yako. Like, that would have been really interesting. Unfortunately, we don't get it, but it would have been dope. But also the soundtrack in that scene, this like haunting, like these like sort of haunting vocals in this hype little like action soundtrack piece. It was great. Again, I would have loved to have seen this fight, but instead we follow Nene, who gets pushed off the side by Hanako, who's like, if we're all the way at the top, then her Yashiro, which is like her tether, should be at the bottom, I guess, since it's not here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just push you over the side. Good luck! And poor Nene drops to the bottom, and that is where we get to talk about the second part of this week's episode, the second big thing, and that is Nene's search for the Yashiro. And by search, I mean she basically finds it immediately, but it's what she does with the information that's interesting, and what that information tells us about Yako. And immediately when Nene lands, it's this totally different vibe from what we saw previously in the episode. Nene is in this sort of like pleasant mountain range looking thing. Like, there's forested areas, there's like lovely little like stone stairs, and she's sort of walking along minding her own business, and she stumbles across this journal. And within the journal is what you can imagine like what a kid would be writing as they're learning how to read and write. And this running monologue of this kid trying to learn how to write in her notebook while her teacher is like correcting the mistakes and helping her out. And you slowly get the idea that the kid might have a slight crush on the teacher, which like everybody's been there, but it gets progressively sadder as it goes. And what's really interesting is the way that they do this slow burn of realization with Nene, where she's slowly putting the pieces together, like, okay, so Misaki isn't the ghost, Misaki is this teacher in this notebook, but what happened to the teacher? And as she keeps reading, you find out that the teacher slipped and fell on the stairs and was killed. And the ghost isn't aware what killed or death even means, since we find out that it's not a ghost, it's a kitsune, and that would be Yako. And Yako's just not familiar with what that means, and so she waited for who knows how long for Misaki to return, and he unfortunately never does. And it's genuinely a heartbreaking moment, especially when Nene is like, hey, like, Misaki would hate to see what you've become. Like, he wouldn't want this. And then Yako responds almost like in an unsettling way. She's like, I know, I want to be scolded by him. But it's like, at first I was like, oh, that's scary. But at the same time, I realized, like, it's not so much scary as it is sad. Like, Yako would just wants him to return in any way, shape, or form, and is willing to do anything to get him to come back, even if it's to upset him. And like, even if he returned just to scold her, it would be enough for her. And that I thought was really, really brilliant. I thought the confrontation and the parallels between Nene and Yako were fantastic. The fact that we get this second confrontation, and Nene not only calls Yako out, saying that Misaki wouldn't want this, but as Hanako arrives to save the day, but he is like destroyed by the fight that we didn't get to see, but he's already beaten up. He saves Nene, gives her the chance to go destroy the Yashiro so that they can take out Yako. And she turns for a second and sort of looks at Yako and says, what you're doing isn't for him, it's for you. And to me, that was great, because it's Nene's character is almost coming full circle as she realizes that she sees a part of herself in Yako that part of herself that she doesn't like, that selfishness, that sort of interest in using others to make herself feel better. And that's a really grown-up idea. The fact that Nene not only realizes that Yako isn't doing this out of a selfless love for Misaki, but it's actually for herself because Misaki made her feel better. And so she's not trying to bring him back, but just to make herself feel better. And Nene realizes that she's been using other people as a crutch to make herself feel better. And that was such a really solid moment. This show really does interesting things with these characters, especially with Nene. I feel like Nene is one of those characters who has really, really grown on me over the course of the last few episodes, and she's definitely a best girl contender. Like my daughter Nene. Like she's solid. She has flaws, but that's what makes interesting characters. Great characters can't be like super happy and upbeat and have nothing wrong with them. That is really boring. A great character has flaws, and I like that Nene has those flaws but is able to overcome them. And with Nene's big moment out of the way, she runs up, she grabs the Yashiro, which in this case the tether that was sort of latching Yako, I guess, to this realm, or just like what gave Yako her power and ability to have a realm in and of itself, is the scissors that were given to her by Misaki to cut her hair. And on the destruction of the Yashiro, we get Hanako sort of stabbing into Yako, and we get Yako's memories playing out. And it's this like really, really pleasant, really pretty moment where it's Yako remembering this time where she was given a pair of scissors by Misaki, and it's the picture that they take, right? And it's like Misaki and all his students, and he reaches over to the Kitsune statue and pulls Yako out so that she can be in the picture with everybody else. Now, everybody else doesn't see her, but Misaki does, and Yako knows that she's there. And it's really, really pretty. And it really gave me Kimetsu no Yaiba vibes in a big bad way. And the only difference being that you don't have that pesky issue where the character having the flashback has to die, although I'd argue that is what gives those flashbacks such weight, because Yako doesn't die. Now, again, I'm going to say something as an anime only that manga fans might be annoyed with me for saying, and again, I don't know where the manga's going, so I might regret saying this, but I kind of feel like Yako should have been exorcised or disappear there, because it would have made that whole backstory and flashback hit a little bit harder. But I do think that maybe she's going to do interesting stuff. She now gets to run around as an adorable kitsune, so I guess that's kind of cool. But yeah, I personally would have gotten rid of her there, but maybe she does important stuff later on. I have no idea. The last thing I'm going to touch on quickly, because I'm running out of time in this week's video, is the ending teaser. We get Hanako kissing Nene on the cheek, it looked like, or on the forehead. I didn't really get a great look at it. I think it was on the cheek. And it was super sweet and adorable, and now that ship has officially sailed as far as I'm concerned. And then we have Natsuhiko, the quote-unquote pretty boy who is not pretty from last week. And he's back, and that crazy weird crane thing, as it turns out, is one of those like ghost orb things that hangs out with Hanako. Only this one is called Koku Jodai, and it is owned by this green-haired girl who I think we see in the OP. I don't super remember. I don't know who these two are, but they kind of give me like weird, like inverted Hanako and Nene vibes, so maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know, but I'm excited to see what's up with these two, what's going on with this situation here. But for now, that's going to be my thoughts on this week's episode. And on that note, everybody, that's going to be all my thoughts on this week's episode of Toilet-bound Hanako, and I realized now that maybe I was a little bit mean to manga fans, a little bit too harsh. That wasn't my intention. So for that, if you were upset, I apologize. Not my intention. But I did just want to let you guys know, like, yes, I read all your comments. And I understand that you guys are laughing in manga, but please double check if somebody didn't comment the exact same thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I know that I did. And that's going to do it for today's video, everybody, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and before we go, as always, I have to give a big, big thank you to the good folks over on Patreon, especially those in the Earl Grey tier: Andrew W., Calvin A., Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G., Digger the Fox, Dominic G., Ionos, Urza, Ginkutaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Marshall B., Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Stephen G., Sakochi, Tristan G., and Veridin. A huge thank you to all of you in the T Squadron for your continued support, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. And with that said, we're gonna wrap up today's video, everybody, so thank you all once again for watching, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.